order the Friday, June 14th, 2019 meeting of the Fort Ord Reuse Authority Board of Directors. Let's see. Oh, we get to do the Pledge of Allegiance now. Maybe Supervisor Lopez, would you lead us in the pledge? Flags over there. All right, our first order of business is closed session. Mr. Giffen, would you alert people as to what we're going to be discussing in closed session?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Chair, members of the board and public. Item 3A, closed session. Conference with legal counsel, Government Code Section 54956.9A D1. Keep Fort Ord Wild versus Fort Ord Reuse Authority, Monterey County Superior Court case number 17CV4540. That's a matter of pending litigation. Item 3B, conference with legal counsel, Government Code Section 54956.9A D1, Marina Community Partners LLC versus Fort Ord Reuse Authority, Monterey County Superior Court case number 18CV871, also a matter of pending litigation. Item 3C, conference with legal counsel, one item of potential litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9D. And finally, item 3D, conference with labor negotiators, Government Code Section 54957.6. The agency designated representatives are Michael Hulamard, Mira Park, and Sophia Selivanov. Selivanov. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public who wishes to ask a question or raise a comment on any of the items for closed session? Okay, seeing none, we will recess to closed session and return as soon as we are able. Friday, June 14th, 2019 meeting of the Fort Ord Reuse Authority. Council, would you announce what action was taken in closed session?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Members of the board and public, the board met in closed session this afternoon on the four items that appear on the closed session calendar. Item 3A, conference with legal counsel, Government Code Section 54956.9A D1. Keep Fort Ord Wild versus Fort Ord Reuse Authority, Monterey County Superior Court case number 17CV4540. That's a matter of pending litigation. The board did authorize counsel to, gave authority to counsel to execute a settlement agreement, the primary terms of which are that KFOW, Keep Fort Ord Wild, will release any and all claims known and unknown that arise from the lawsuit against FORA. KFOW will waive its right to appeal, and FORA will relinquish its claim for costs and attorney's fees against KFOW. Those are the primary terms of the settlement, and we will go forward and get that done. Item 3B, conference with legal counsel, Government Code Section 54956.9A D1, Marina Community Partners LLC versus Fort Ord Reuse Authority, Monterey County Superior Court case number 18CV871, also a matter of pending litigation. The board heard from counsel and gave counsel directive to continue its course in attempting to resolve that litigation. Item 3C, conference with legal counsel, one item of potential litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9D. The board heard from counsel concerning the status of the claims being made that arise or that may evolve into a potential litigation situation, and there's nothing to report out specifically on that. Item 3D, conference with labor negotiators, Government Code Section 54957.6. The agency designated representatives Michael Hulamard and Mira Park. The board heard from the labor negotiators and from counsel, and after discussion did give direction for further negotiations, and that is all that is to be reported out on that case, on that matter.
Thank you. I think the next item on the agenda is acknowledgements, but why don't we have a roll call to make sure we're all here before we have announcements?
Supervisor Parker,
Here?
Supervisor Lopez, Supervisor Adams, Councilmember Gagliotti,
Here.
Councilmember O'Connell, Mayor Pro Tem Morton, Councilmember Hoffa,
Here.
Mayor Oglesby, Councilmember Pacheco, Mayor Carbone,
Here.
Mayor Gunter, Councilmember Garfield,
Here.
Marina, thank you, Nicole Hollingsworth, Erica Parker, Dr. D.K. Diffenbaugh, Steve Matarazzo, Dr. Eduardo Ochoa, Colonel Ford, Bill Collins, Dr. Walter Tribely, Lisa Reinheiner, and Dr. Matt Zefferman. You have a quorum.
Thank you.
And I apologize.
Jan
Councilman
Ramers
Reimers.
Carmel.
Yes.
Thank you. That's what you're pointing to.
Thank you. We will move now to acknowledgements, announcements, and correspondence. Take it away, Michael.
Yes, Chair. First item, I wanted to make sure that all of you note, and you should have received emails in this regard, the United States Army is conducting an outreach survey right now, and the cleanup community, hoping that you'll participate in the survey. It takes about 10 minutes, I understand, from Bill Collins. So if you don't have it, go to the news section on the FortOrdCleanup.com website to access the online survey. And I think, Bill, you wanted these by August?
That's correct. Yeah, this is something that we do as part of our public relations requirement under CERCLA.
Okay. Chair, the second item is, for all of you at your desk, you should have a card outlining the fact that the DART Symposium is going to be on June 21st at Monterey Hyatt. This is a joint effort by Marina Airport, the technical folks. We even have support from CSUMB and UC Santa Cruz. A lot of folks are involved in this program. It's going to be taking place out at the Monterey Hyatt on June 21st, 2019. The next item is are a few announcements about some staffing changes. The first one is that Ikuyo Yoneda Lopez has accepted a new position at Monterey Salinas Transit. Lisa's over there sheepishly looking like she stole someone.
Yeah.
And she did. Ikuyo starts next week as marketing manager at MST. Second, a couple of our colleagues have indicated their decision to retire. That's Robert Norris and Steve Ensley. They will be retiring effective June 30th. And Jonathan Brinkman has announced that he will be moving over to work for an alternate level of employment. He begins with the Local Area Formation Commission, I think July 1st. So given that, Chair, I would like to ask if the three resolutions could be brought into note. I will read them each, one for Steve, one for Robert, and one for Jonathan. It's not that that you'd only been here a short time, and our practice has been at least 5 years. Is that appropriate, Chair?
So you're going to read them and then we will adopt them?
Yes.
And then...
Maybe even give them an opportunity to say something.
Sorry?
Even maybe give them an opportunity for them to say something.
That could happen.
Okay.
And so these are in our packet?
Yes, they are.
Excellent.
I think they are.
So why don't we go ahead and...
No, they are. I'll read them in.
They're not? Okay, so if we're going to take action on them, we probably should add them to the agenda.
I'll move to be added to the agenda.
Thank you. All right, there's a motion, a second, to add these resolutions for Steve Ensley, Robert Norris, and Jonathan Brinkman. All those in favor of adding them to the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great, thank you. And then you'll read them, and then we can decide whether we want to approve
Yes,
them.
Chair. In alphabetical order, this first one is for Jonathan Brinkman. Whereas Jonathan M. Brinkman has served over 15 years as a Fort Ord Reuse Authority, at the Fort Ord Reuse Authority, and including as an intern, a contract employee, a senior planner, and currently the last 4 years as principal planner. And whereas Jonathan has not only demonstrated the utmost commitment to FORA's economic and planning goals, but has diligently assisted other local entities in fully comprehending the scope of the recovery program. And whereas during his employment, Mr. Brinkman has provided substantial contributions to a wide range of initiatives ranging from workforce housing, base reuse plan implementation, regional urban design guidelines, the capital improvement program, consistency determinations, and habitat conservation plan. And whereas Jonathan is known for his flamboyant style, flashy wardrobe, mercurial temperament, often elbowing his colleagues aside to take charge of every discussion, he is nonetheless beloved by all who seek his knowledge and advice on all capital improvement and planning issues. And whereas Mr. Brinkman is elected to continue his public service to the Monterey Bay region by taking a senior position at the County of Monterey Local Area Formation Commission, now therefore be resolved that the FORA Board of Directors expresses its appreciation to Principal Planner Jonathan M. Brinkman through this resolution for his extraordinary contributions to the reuse of the former Fort Ord. This is your chance for a few words, Jonathan. You're a man of many.
Okay, we're good. All right. Thank you so much, Chair Parker, members of the board. It's been a pleasure to serve FORA for these past 15 plus years if you want to count the internship years. Just the experience here has been wonderful for me and the whole FORA staff. It's a very humbling experience to be here at the microphone today, but I'm sure this won't be the last I'll see of many of you around the table. So thank you so much.
D. Stephen Ensley. The Fort Ord Reuse Authority Board of Directors hereby resolves that whereas D. Stephen, also known as Steve Ensley, has served the Fort Ord Reuse Authority for more than 20 years, 8 years as Assistant Executive Officer, and 12 years as Director of Planning and Redevelopment. And whereas Steve earned a bachelor's degree in history and a Master of City Planning degree from the University of California at Berkeley, and served for a time as an adjunct professor at the Monterey Institute for International Studies, among other educational institutions. And whereas prior to coming to the Fort Ord Reuse Authority, Steve served as city manager for the great city of Delray Oaks, the town of Woodside Finance Department director, and senior management analyst for the city of Berkeley, and also earlier serving as advocate for affordable housing for the Santa Barbara Housing Cooperative. And whereas Steve Ensley has made significant and long-lasting contributions to the planning and implementation of the Fort Ord Reuse Authority Base Reuse Plan, due in large part to the $500 million financing program that included mitigations for roads, water, sewer, and capital expenditures for public safety and fire protection. And whereas Mr. Ensley has never met a regional or local planning issue he could not further complicate by his unabashed penchant for exploring multiple academic research approaches to advance the relatively simple ideas into sophisticated and complex algorithms. And whereas Steve has fashioned a remarkable reputation for loyalty and commitment to FORA's 3-county, 3-issue mission. Now therefore be it resolved that the Fort Ord Reuse Authority Board of Directors expresses appreciation to Assistant Executive Officer D. Stephen Ensley through this resolution for his extraordinary contributions to the reuse of the former Fort Ord.
Thank you. And these are the words that you fear. I will be brief, but I actually will try to do it this time. First of all, thank you to my partner, Michael, all these years. It's been a wonderful ride. And I also want to thank the board, all different renditions of it, and a series of chairs that were just outstanding over the years. This has been, a month where I had to sort of like think about, why did I do this? And, what does it all mean? And what I summarize it as being is that I believe in democracy. I believe in elected representatives. And I've had the amazing opportunity to have a 40-year career, roughly, that has been in that milieu. And to be senior management to a group of elected officials is exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And you guys gave me that opportunity. So thank you so much.
Robert John Norris, Jr., E6 Marine Corps, Semper Fi. Whereas Robert John Norris, Jr. has served as Principal Analyst for the Fort Ord Reuse Authority, overseeing human resources, prevailing wage issues, and logistics since 2012. And whereas Robert Norris has served in the United States Marine Corps in both enlisted, student, and non-commissioned officer command roles during the Vietnam War and was commended for his bravery and service to the United States. And whereas Robert Norris has served in multiple roles in the state of California, addressing housing and community development issues, including a term as a gubernatorial appointee in the California Department of Housing and Community Development. And whereas serving as FORA Principal Analyst, Robert Norris actively supported and staffed several of the Monterey Bay regional efforts to activate the California Central Coast Veterans Cemetery in its creation and expansion. And whereas as board and executive committee member of the National Coalition for Homeless Veterans, Robert Norris assisted many communities across the nation and in California in addressing the resources needed to support homelessness at local, state, and national levels. And whereas Robert Norris has demonstrated a personal commitment to the veteran community as principal staff to the FORA Veterans Issues Advisory Committee, providing both support for elected and appointed leadership in every effort. And whereas Robert Norris is known for his laid-back, gentle style, polite, refrained, and unassuming, diplomatic, risk-averse Baltimore, Maryland, jarhead, drill sergeant management style. Hoorah! Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Fort Ord Reuse Authority Board of Directors expresses appreciation to Robert John Norris, Jr. through this resolution for his extraordinary contributions to the reuse of the former Fort Ord and to the citizens of the Monterey Bay region, wishing him every success in all future endeavors. Push it up.
It is an honor on the 244th anniversary of the United States Army to be honored here at Fort Ord. It has been a wonderful experience in observing in the laboratory regional governance. As a student of political science, I think this is the wave of the future where you will have to look at regional solutions for scarce resources. I thank you again for the pleasure of meeting each and every one of you and giving me something worthy to do in this period in my life. I look forward to a new challenge, but I've been well prepared through the crucible of Fort Ord. Thank you.
Thank you. I would accept a motion approving those resolutions.
Move approval.
thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. And before we move to the consent calendar, we have one more acknowledgement, and I'll let John Gagliotti let us know what it is and take us through it.
We have one more resolution to share with the board. Fort Ord Reuse Authority Board of Directors hereby resolves that whereas since February 1997, Michael A. Hulamar Jr. has accepted responsibility of Executive Officer of the Fort Ord Reuse Authority.
Excuse me a second. Sorry, I didn't realize this was something that our board was going to adopt, so I need to ask that this be put on the agenda. It's another resolution for us to consider.
I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, thanks. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, you're good. We're added to the agenda.
Thank you, Chair. Whereas since February 1997, Michael A. Hulamar Jr. has accepted responsibility as Executive Officer of the Fort Ord Reuse Authority, guiding the planning, implementation, and financing of redevelopment of the former Fort Ord Military Reservation, and whereas under Mr. Hulamar's leadership, FORA has received significant recognition for reuse of the former Fort Ord, including the following recent awards: 2012 Monterey Chamber of Commerce Public Official of the Year, 2017 American Planning Association National Planning Achievement Award for Best Practice, 2018 Special District Resource Management Authority President Special Acknowledgement Award, and the 2018 Office of Secretary of Defense Award Exemplary Work in Base Redevelopment. And whereas the Association of Defense Communities, ADC, is comprised of over 400 community military partnerships that promote the value of military installations and addressing changes in military mission and their impact on local regional economics through its annual Defense Community Awards program, honors the achievements and leadership present in our defense communities on military installations and within the Department of Defense. And whereas the ADC John Lynch Community Leadership Award is given to an individual whose outstanding leadership has been essential in ensuring that the community or local redevelopment authority has, 1, helped address the community's specific economic needs following base realignment or closure, 2, shown measurable results, 3, incorporated innovative public-private partnerships, and or 4, served as a model for other communities across the country. And whereas Michael A. Hulamar Jr. has been selected the 2019 recipient of the ADC John Lynch Community Leadership Award. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Fort Ord Reuse Authority Board of Directors congratulates and expresses appreciation to the FORA Executive Officer Michael A. Hulamar Jr. for his extraordinary contributions and achievements in the reuse of former Fort Ord.
Thank you, John. Thank you, board members. It's been an extraordinary week in a lot of regard. Listening to a lot of congratulations from folks about an award is humbling in and of itself, but getting recognition from the people you work with across the country, the folks that are your colleagues across the country, the folks in the Association of Defense Communities, is particularly special. But anytime you get an award, it's because of the work of a lot of great people. And I think the award that we achieved this week was particularly special because folks across the nation recognize that we have become a model for many other communities across the country. Not because we go out and show them what to do, but because they look at our website, they look at the work we do, they steal our documents, they use them one place or another. And I think it's important for me to say this. Every single person in this room and in a lot of other rooms around the Monterey Bay own a piece of that award, because everybody contributes to our success at Fort Ord, whether there's an agreement about how we move ahead with habitat, or a disagreement about how we move ahead with housing, or an approval for a road in a particular location, or that we want everything to be open space. We're all contributing to the discourse that ends in having the recovery program successful for everyone. So everyone is a part of that success. And I recognize that, and when I was receiving the award, there was a certain sense of calmness that came over me as I went up on the stage, and Jimmy Panetta was talking about balance, and I was not aware he was going to talk so heavily about the importance of our approach with 25 different entities sitting around a table trying to muscle through how do you fashion something that's win-win for everybody. And that's what it's always been about, and that's what my term as executive officer has been about for 23 years. How do we all achieve a success that we all smile and are proud of? So I appreciate the recognition here way more than some fancy place with some bright lights in Washington, D.C., because this is where the ground, what is it, Colonel? What can I say? It's where the boots hit the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. And now that we've heard it, does someone want to make a motion to adopt the resolution? Thank you. There's a motion?
Second.
Second. All right. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Any public comment on any of these resolutions? Realize I didn't ask. All right. Thank you. We will move now to the consent agenda. Are there any board members who would like to pull any of the items for question or comment? Yes, Director Morton.
So I would pull 7A. There's a mistake in who made a motion. I brought it to the deputy clerk's attention, so can we just have those come back next month? So that's as to 7A. And I would like to be able to ask questions with regard to 7D, the building removal financing feasibility.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public who would like to pull any of the consent agenda items for comment or question? All right, seeing none, so you had, well, why don't you go ahead with the building removal comments or questions?
Building removal comments. So this is just to receive a report, and we're reviewing the reports. My question is, first question is, what's the next action to be taken by the board? Who's making the authority decision to move forward with these? When does that occur? And if it is to move forward with bonds, when would they be anticipated to be issued?
Chair, I think Jonathan can give you more detailed response, but we are working with NHA advisors and all of the members of the administrative committee, and they've indicated to us that once a decision is made to proceed, they can fashion a bond program within a relatively short period of time. They believe it can be done within 90 days of when a decision is made. I personally think it's probably a bit longer than that. Probably 150 days would be better. Probably if a decision was made early in the coming fiscal year, probably by the end of the calendar year, it probably could occur. There is a bit more work to be done by the administrative committee. In the last report that was given, there was a request for some additional information which we're waiting for. Jonathan, is that where we are?
Yes. So this is an issue that's been discussed at the administrative committee level. The intention is to bring a recommendation from the committee back to the board. There will be a discussion this next Wednesday, the 19th, with updated information from the consultant. That's really what the hard discussion is, the financial analysis and how what is the net benefit to each party if there's financial concerns for each of the entities that has a redevelopment agency or had a redevelopment agency on Fort Ord. So that discussion will happen this Wednesday. It's likely there would be a recommendation in the July meeting. It just depends on the committee's willingness to make a recommendation.
So may I ask follow-up questions, Ms. Chair? So then the question that I would have is, in the feasibility report, the issuance of these bonds and the analysis that's presented is based on the tax increment of $2.6 million being applied to service the bond issuance. And in our budget, which we're looking at further in this agenda, we allocate $1.3 million of that $2.6 million to our overhead costs. So how do we service these bonds and also use the money for overhead? It's addressed ultimately as an identified concern, but there's no analysis. So is it that we are thinking we're only going to do 50%? Should there be another table that indicates if you can only pay 1.3 million, that you're only going to get $8 million in money? Is that what we're considering?
So to address that question, at the very end of the report, at the very last attachment, I don't have a page number. I believe if it was numbered, it would be page 26 in the board packet. There is a 2 rows at the very bottom that say fiscal year 2021 and 2022. Those would be FORA's share of the property taxes in those years after bond issuance. So that's a partial answer based on this analysis of FORA would still be receiving some property taxes, and that would be the level that's assumed FORA would receive even after debt service is paid.
So you're indicating that it's 2.6 million plus 1.7 million. This are estimated tax revenues in 2021?
That's the analysis. As we know, the assessed valuation on FORA keeps growing. So that's my understanding here, is that as the assessed value keeps growing, FORA's share keeps growing. So the debt service, there would be amount residual after debt service.
Okay, that seems like a very large increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this item? I think just that question does raise the desirability of keeping our costs, our overhead, our admin costs as low as possible so that the maximum amount of money is available for doing the work that we're issuing the bonds for, it seems to me.
If I may, is that the debt service, what you can service as debt means how much you can borrow. So if you don't have the money to service the debt, you're borrowing less money. So if you're reducing your debt service cost, my understanding from this analysis, by 50%, you're reducing what you can borrow against by 50% or more, which then means instead of 25 million, you only have 12.5 million. I just want to be sure that that's analyzed by this organization, admin committee. I'm just calling it out. Thank you.
Good, thank you. All right, so with that, we are going to continue 7A to next month. So I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda, elimination of item A.
Is there a second? Great, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great, thank you. All right, we'll move to our business items. And I am going to just move 8F, which is our transition plan update. Usually it's the first item on our agenda, so I'm just going to move it to that position. So if we could take 8F first, that would be great.
So, Chair, this transition plan and implementing agreement progress report essentially notes that we are currently in the throes of the transition plan implementing agreement process. Our consultants at Regional Government Services have made quite a bit of progress. They made a report to the Administrative Committee providing an early draft of what they call the global or the comprehensive transition plan implementing agreement that they anticipate each and every one of the jurisdictions will be executing. That draft has been shared with all of the jurisdictions' staff, and the jurisdictions, I think, have had subsequent meetings with Regional Government Services. According to Kendall Flint, yesterday she indicated she had another draft which she forwarded to our clerk, and the Administrative Committee will be discussing next Wednesday a revised draft based on the individual meetings and comments we've received from multiple different entities. And so that's on the schedule for next Wednesday, and I anticipate Kendall believes that a presentation along with a draft plan implementing agreement can be briefed to the board in July. Now that's not going to be the final. We're still talking some work about getting it finalized and in the shape that everybody's ready to sign. It'll have to go to each individual jurisdiction. There'll be a lot of massaging, but we're anticipating a presentation that everyone would look at as well. They have also been circulating a transition plan implementing agreement between Marina Coast Water District and multiple entities as well, Fort Ord Reuse Authority and jurisdiction. There's a draft of that was circulated, I believe, in April. We received comments back in May. There's another draft of that is now being circulated amongst the jurisdictions as well regarding Marina Coast Water Districts. I think there's some notes about that in here, but those things are happening. There was the status is kind of, I wrote this up last week, but as of this week, I'm hearing that there's the bill is morphing a bit and maybe changing. Portions of the bill might be adjusted somewhat. I think maybe some of you may know more about it than I, because I've been in Washington all week, but I'm understanding that there may be some edits brought to the local government committee in July before it goes to the assembly floor. And depending on that version and what it actually looks like, there may be some requirement to make the version that was approved in the Senate 38-0 look like the one that's in the assembly after the fact. So I've talked with Senator Monning's office last week and early this week, but not for the last several days. So I'm not sure the current status of that. So that would be my report. I did double check this with Kendall Flint. She kind of went over it and said this looks good to her before we sent it out. So that's where we are today.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from board members at this point? Director Adams and then Director Morton.
So I just had a question on, well, two things. One, under the status update, I think it's Senator Manning, not Senator Manning, unless something has dramatically changed. And then wanted to ask on the fourth bullet. It indicates it dissolves property tax revenues beyond 2022 unless it is for debt issued by FORA. Is that prior to 2022 or should that be 2020? And perhaps that's essentially what we've been talking about here.
And I think that's the issue that is being adjusted or modified by Senator Manning. The way I understood it, it was going to dissolve property tax the way it was written. The current version is written. But that creates some conflict and problem because, as I understand it, the county will have a certain amount of obligations the way it's currently written, but maybe not the resources. So there's a question about how to make sure those resources are available to the county. And while I have not been in town, that was the way I understood it from long distance.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, the third bullet. I'm not sure that this really is geared to sustain the FORA CFO. I think it could be the CFD, but...
Yes, it should be D. We don't have a CFO.
That's it. There we go. Thank you.
Unless it's Helen.
Okay. All right. Director Morton.
So to the, I think that Director Adams asked the same question, is that my understanding that the bill intention is that we're not able to obligate tax increment post June 30th, 2020.
According to everyone, we are able to obligate that if it's done before June 30. But depending on the final language. But there's also other language in the bill that says no new projects or no new financing will be added, and that's not leaving. So
okay.
That'll stay.
So I think you and I said the same thing in the reverse.
You're right.
So what
Maybe I should just say yes.
So to the extent then goes to the earlier questions regarding the other item is that if we do want to bond for money for blight removal, those bonds need to be approved and issued prior to June 30th, 2020, or the window is closed.
Yes.
Okay. And obviously if this bill doesn't pass, the window also is closed. It's just that we have a deadline to do the bonds if we want to do the bonds. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members with comments or questions on this? Any member of the public? All right, I'll just say I appreciate the report, and I'm looking forward to the transition plan implementing agreements. We had heard they might be here this month, which was part of what prompted my interest in getting this update. And I do want to say I think the work of Kendall Flint and RGS has been greatly appreciated by this board, by the admin committee, really made some good progress on the issues and getting those implementing agreements ready to go, and helping with the transition issues, which looked at various moments sort of insurmountable, depending on who you were talking to. So I just want to say that I think it's important that we hear from RGS next month, and that they be free to bring their work products forward to us and also to the administrative committee. And if FORA staff has disagreements with how things are worded or how they're being done, that you express that in the admin committee or at the board, rather than trying to tinker with what RGS is doing before they have a chance to present it. So that I think that's important for the process.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, Chair. I need to be clear.
Just that when RGS has a draft, say, of something, that it be allowed to get to the administrative committee in the form that they have put it forward, and that rather than FORA staff trying to make any edits or anything, that if you have things that you think need to be done differently, that you have that be part of the discussion in the admin committee or at the board, rather than making those changes. And maybe that's the way it's working, but I just think it's part of what has really worked well is that RGS has been able to use their information, their judgment to bring things forward, and have really been able to work through a lot of issues. And just want to make sure that continues.
I'm just checking to see if that's board direction, Chair.
So,
Okay, so I guess it's a question. All right. I thought all right, well, do you want to discuss that? How do we want to?
yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say I'm totally lost on what you're trying to convey. And so I'm wondering that if there's a problem that we should know about, perhaps you could articulate what has caused you to want to give direction for an alternative pathway to staff. Is there something we don't know?
So I'm not sure, but I had heard that there might have been some interest by FORA staff to alter documents that RGS was bringing, and so I don't know if that's true or not. But I think because RGS works for us and has been doing a good job of really helping the discussion and the jurisdictions to move forward, that they be allowed to do that. And if there are other opinions by FORA staff about how that should be done, that be part of the discussion, rather than having things changed out of the sight of the people that RGS is working for. So I'm just saying it as a precautionary measure. That's all I'm saying, because that's what I understand the working relationship to have been set up to be, and just want to make sure that it continues.
Okay.
So may I comment?
Yes.
Just when we, as a board, determined that we were going to hire RGS, well, we sent it out for an RFP. It was actually Director Adams' recommendation that we hire an independent entity to analyze from the standpoint of the jurisdictions going forward that are going to be burdened with obligations, whatever you want to call them. And so I think to the chair's point is that we want to be sure at this point in the game, after all of the consensus of information is being provided to RGS by all of the jurisdictions, that RGS is making agreements, I'm not saying whether they did or didn't, but making an agreement that reflects the information collected from all of us as entities, and that come forward to us for review. And what I would expect in drafting these agreements and as they're distributed is that every jurisdiction would continue to be able to have input as to the terms and be able to address what their concerns are, that we're not looking for it being edited prior to RGS analysis.
Can I just comment here? It seems like that this discussion is beyond the scope of the item as agendized. And if we want to re-agendize it for another meeting, I think that's most appropriate. But we're at 4:25 and we have one business item behind us after this report. And I just think it's outside the scope of this agenda.
Thank you.
No, it's about the transition planning process. So, all right, but I hear you. Good. So we will move to the retention and separation package for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Yes, Chair, members of the board, Mira Park will provide a brief presentation, but there's a rather specific recommendation in your packet to choose one of the options listed under item 4 on the recommendation, and there's a resolution which RGS has prepared attached to the document, item number 2.
Okay. Thank you. I'll just press this. Good afternoon, members of the board. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to present this retention and separation package. I'm Mira Park from Regional Government Services, and I work within the Human Resources Management Division of RGS. And my HR colleagues and I are presenting this retention and separation package in order to provide a path to sustain the existing employees at FORA to carry out the mandated functions and programs as necessary. So the separation and retention package is made up of 4 components. I'll go over those 4 components, but the 4th component has 3 options that you will need to decide upon. So the first component is for all employees remaining with FORA after July 1st, 2019 will receive a 5% stipend for additional duties they will be assuming as staff members leave, retires, or resigns. The second component is for all employees remaining after July 1st, 2019 receive $1,000 per month for every month they remain with FORA. The third component is for employees laid off, FORA will contribute up to 12 months of medical premium costs for vision, dental, and medical health premium costs. The fourth component was initially based on longevity when we recommended it, and this particular severance item serves 2 purposes. One is to acknowledge the years of service at FORA, and the other is to provide a cushion to help employees when they are laid off. Now, since our initial analysis this year, the employee composition at FORA has changed. As you are aware, FORA has seen or will see the departure of 6 staff members. And based on this new information, we are providing a couple of additional options that will allow employees to have greater access to this benefit. Option A, 4A is, this was our initial recommendation. Option 4A is 1 week of salary for every year of FORA service, and the cap is 6 weeks. Option 4B is more of a 2-tiered approach. 4 weeks of salary for less than 5 years of service, and 6 weeks of salary for 5 or more years of service. Option 4C is similar to option 4B, but it raises the cap to 8 weeks from 6 weeks. So these are the 3 options to choose from for component 4. of the package. And as you can see, option A leans more towards recognizing longevity and years of service, while the other two options also emphasizes the cushion to help employees when they are laid off. Whatever option is chosen, the total cost of all four components of the retention and separation package will not exceed $550,000. So I can take any questions at this time.
Questions from board members? Yes, Director Lopez.
I have a question on the resolution. It's letter E, and that's the $1,000 per month that they remain in employment with FORA. Then it says it'll be paid on a monthly basis. So is that just a $1,000 a month bonus for everybody that stays on after that date?
For every month they stay on after July 1st,
And
it's
that's-
$1,000 a month.
More the 5% increase as well. So it's
In addition, the 5% is a stipend, and then the $1,000 is in addition for every month that they stay on.
and that's paid monthly, not
Monthly.
at separation.
Not at separation, monthly.
And then I wanted to ask whether or not the stipend and the $1,000 a month additional bonus, are those PERS-able?
No, they're not, and they were structured to be that way, so
Good.
they're not PERSable.
Thank you.
I have one follow-up. So I guess the reason that I had to ask the question about the bonus was in the way the memo is written, it says upon separation from employment, $1,000 will be paid monthly.
That
So it's
was,
sort of-
yes.
I was just wondering if that was in perpetuity. Thank you.
I know, I did catch that as well, and that's a typo. The resolution is the way it will be administered.
Here we are.
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Reimers?
Thank you. Am I reading it correctly in the resolution where G, and then it says that the FORA will provide condition upon execution of the mutually acceptable release of claims, one of the following, and this is for people who do not voluntarily leave. So will that person be able to choose? Are we going to choose them today, or will the people be able to choose?
Choose today, and
One of these
it's not,
options.
yes, it's
Okay,
so
thank
that we can modify the resolution with what the choice has been.
Other questions by the board? Yes, Director Morton?
So I'm confused now on this $1,000 a month. So the first month you get an extra 1,000, you stay 2 months, you get 2,000. By 12th month, you get 12,000. I'm completely confused by this dialogue,
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
I'm
So
trying to
for
understand.
for every month that you stay, you receive $1,000 for that month that you stay. So first month, 1,000, second month, another 1,000.
But
third
it's
month.
not cumulative.
It's not cumulative.
Okay,
Right.
so that's
Yes.
how you answered it, I didn't understand. And I'm going, wait a minute.
Well,
Thank you.
Yes. It's good to clarify those things.
So just to be clear, then, we talked about this. There's going to be a 2% cost of living increase that will be across the board that's not in the separation or retention packet. That's just a given. So there will be a 5% raise plus the $1,000 a month bonus, plus 12 months of health insurance, and that would be for an individual and their full family, depending on whatever kind of insurance it is. And then either A, B, or C under 4.
Yes, and A, B, and C is what needs to be,
What we have to
should
determine now.
decide.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then I think I asked this question earlier. We do not know what the cost is of each of A, B, or C, essentially, or
don't
the numbers of employees that are in each of those categories.
Right, so I don't have the specific cost breakdown of the difference between A, B, and C, but the total, whatever the option is chosen, it's not going to exceed the $550,000 for funding this retention and separation package.
The cap, essentially.
That's the cap.
Thank you.
Director Garfield and then Director Hoffa?
Thank you, Chair. On number 3, just a clarification of for employees that are laid off, they get a year of whatever health insurance they've been getting. But I believe it should stay until they have other health insurance, is that you don't get it for 12 months if you get another job and you get health insurance. And that's, well, if I'm giving you a $2,000 a month stipend to pay for your health insurance,
So it's up
how
to.
do I assure that you're not continuing to collect it even when you have another alternative available to you?
Is
Right,
it a
so
stipend or a payment to the health insurance company?
So the
That's question.
administration of continuing on the medical and the medical, dental, and vision still needs to be sorted out because there's a lot of unknown factors in how that administration is going to be handled. So that's why it's up to 12 months. It's not full 12 months. That's why in the resolution it
I'm
makes
actually
that
thinking about it a
distinction.
slightly different way. If I get new employment and I show my new employer that I have health insurance already, maybe the new employer's health insurance isn't so good. I have a 12-month severance agreement. I can keep the, if you don't specify it, it means
Right.
I can keep the FORA health insurance for the full 12 months and then go on my new employer's health insurance. I believe it should state that when the employee has another option, they need to take that and not continue to get the health insurance from FORA because it's for severance until they have another
Until
alternative.
they find employment
So I just want to
with.
be sure we're clarifying that they cease getting that benefit when they have another alternative available to them from a new employment. So that was my point on that.
Regarding 4A, B, and C, in your professional judgment, which of those options is most likely to provide the most effective incentive to keep as many employees here as possible?
It's really difficult to speak to that because every employee has different needs and oh sure it is difficult to speak to which one is the best because the employee population here at FORA have different salary levels and different years of service and different needs. So it's more of a philosophical question of do you want to recognize years of service or do you want to do a little bit of both and also provide that cushion when an employee is laid off. So that's, yeah.
Director Gagliotti? Oh, and then Director Adams.
Given that neither has any, I guess, greater impact and it all stays under the cap, what's to say we don't let the employee make that decision?
I think it would be better to have something that's set that can be applied equitably to everyone, and administering it will be a little bit easier if we stick with one. Let me go back to the previous question about which one professionally we think is equitable and fair. Although it is difficult to speak to everyone's needs and desires, option 2 or option 4B to us seems to be a little bit more compassionate towards employees that will be getting laid off. So,
Dr. Adams, and then Director Morton.
I agree with you. And then I just want to ensure that that this is said sort of for the record, but all of these things, the separation options and the retention options, everything has a sunset date, correct?
yes.
And that sunset date is December 31st, 2020.
June 30th.
June 30th,
2020.
2020. See, I gave 6 months bonus. How about that? June 30, 2020. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So my question is, an option B that you're giving 4 weeks to anybody that's employed for less than 5 years, is this being offered only to our full-time equivalent employees? In essence, if we have part-time employees or we hire somebody in the last 6 months of existence to put filing away, we're not paying them. How is it limited? Because that's not evidenced here.
That's correct. So this is this package is only available to full-time employees that are employed by FORA as of July 1st, 2019. So that is in item C in the resolution, where we do define eligibility for the package.
Anyone else? Questions? Yes, Director Garfield.
Can I make a pitch for one of them?
Almost.
Okay, I'll hold that thought.
We'll hear from the public. I did have a couple of questions. In the resolution, I want to be sure, and maybe council can help with this. The paragraph A says that FORA is set to dissolve. At this moment, that is true, that FORA will dissolve on June 30th, 2020, but there is legislation that envisions an extension. So I think we shouldn't have it be contingent on the dissolution or anything. Somehow, if this is really truly to have an end date of June 30th, 2020, we need to just say that and not have it be contingent on other things which may or may not come to pass, because this would be a very different financial proposition if we were talking about 2022 as opposed to 2020. So I think just clarity there would be helpful. And then I'm wondering.
It's a factual statement.
Did you want? Sorry.
I was just wondering, it's a factual statement that it's set to dissolve in June 30, 2020. I don't know how we would change that.
May I?
Well, as of this moment, yes, but there is legislation that may be adopted that would extend FORA's life another 2 years, and so, and so I guess I just want to make sure that we're being fair and clear to staff of what we're talking about. So that's all. And it seems to me that is language that might get us in trouble. So I'm just raising.
FORA is currently set to dissolve?
I leave that up to you. I don't think we need to. Yeah, Director Morton and then Director Oglesby.
The layoff is not predicated upon FORA dissolving. So the sentences has the layoff predicated upon. It says when it resolves, any staff will be laid off. The fact of the matter is, this agreement is laying off staff effective June 30th, 2020. And so the sentence can simply state that. It's not predicated upon FORA dissolution by statute.
Director Oglesby.
I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I'm agreeing with what you guys are getting to, and I think at a certain point we need to have our attorney establish what is FORA now and what it would be July 1st, 2020. So as we go down this road, a lot of these things are going to continue, and we just can't keep saying FORA won't dissolve when it's changing. So that's what I'm getting. I think you guys are making a good point. But let's figure out how we change the language so we don't have to have this conversation every time we talk about something that goes past June 30th, 2020. That's my 2 cents on that. Maybe we can't resolve it today, but it's important what you guys are saying. If it's important, then this is not the only time you're going to use that frame.
The severances, they're laid off effective June 30th, 2020. That's the severance package is predicated upon that.
Right.
That's the recital.
Great. Thank you. And then, so one of the things I know that there is still work to be done, and some staff are leaving, some staff are staying. We know we need staff, some staff to stay. Is there a work plan that we are working against so we know? Because I'm just thinking there may be some staff that we want to speak to individually to ask them to take on certain duties to make sure that we have someone who has those abilities. And so I think in general this is helpful, but it seems to me that there are probably some specific duties that we may want to talk to individual staff members about, and it may be that they then that they're working out of class, or that they will, we could call it an interim assignment, and there may be some remuneration connected to that. So I guess this is just not different or not saying we shouldn't be doing something along these lines, but what are we doing to really be clear about what's the work we need to have done and what staff members might we be talking to make that happen?
Yes, Chair, I appreciate that question because the board is authorized doing almost exactly that. Last year, you authorized additional dollars as we anticipated we would be losing folks, so we've done some reassignments already. We are having to do some reorganization to move folks around to accomplish the goals that the board has already set. And in the budget that was voted on last time were dollars, separate dollars from these that allow for interim appointments or other kinds of things for folks to be able to carry on that work. And that's already authorized in the master resolution for the executive officer as well for these personnel functions. But almost all of that is separate and it's carried in the budget in separate locations. This is completely apart from that and relates solely to the retention separation question.
Great. Thank you. Yes, Director Gunter, let me hand you my microphone.
I need the mic.
Sure you do. You want the public?
My question, my concern is, we've already authorized the 5% to have the employees do additional work in this agreement if we ever get to vote on it. I'm hoping that we will get to vote on this and get to the budget, because right now, this board doesn't have a budget, and I guess we'd have to have another meeting before July 1st if we don't get there before sometime this evening. But the 5% is already in there to assign people to other duties, and that was part of the plan as we move forward, as far as I know, unless I've missed something here.
Good. Thank you. Good. All right. Any other questions by board members before I ask the public if they have questions or comments? All right. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this discussion? All right. Bring it back to this board. I think Director Garfield, you wanted to make a pitch.
I do. So on item number 4, there are 3 options. I was one of the people who asked for options in addition to 4A, which was the first option that was presented, which was 1 week of service, cap at 6 weeks. In my experience in the world, that's a very lean option. And one of the things we want to do is every person counts as you go through for continuity. The person who answers the phone, the person who knows where the supplies are, the person who knows how to order things, everybody matters. So if you've worked here for 2 years and you get 2 weeks severance, you're not going to stick it out. You're going to go find another job as soon as you can. What we're asking people to do by giving them a severance package is stick it out before they start, so they time they're looking for a new job so they can help close the doors. To my way of thinking, 4C does that the best. It gives everybody a month to, at the very least, to start a job search. We have a tight job market. I think for many jobs, they shouldn't have a problem. But if you're looking for a job in today's market, how long does it take to get through an interview process, through reference checks? It's a good can be several weeks before you get your new job and your new job starts. So let's give them the cushion that gives them options without their family suffering to stick it out, close the doors with us, and keep some continuity going so that the people who are doing all sorts of different types of work have the team that they need to be functional. So I'm making a pitch for 4C.
Dr. Carbone? Oh, and Director Reimers?
I was gonna make the motion.
Okay.
For, to, go with the recommendation of Mrs. Garfield under 4C to help to retain our, people.
I'll second that.
All right. Director Reimers, did you have anything else you wanted to? Okay. Great. So we have a motion and a second. So may I assume that your motion includes items 1, 2, and 3, as well as 4C? Okay. So we have a motion on the table. We have a second. Any comments? I guess I'll just say, yes, Director Carbone?
Correction on the resolution, that we needed to make an adjustment.
I think the language in A was.
Right, okay, right, with the, so that the motion includes the correction to the language in A to just be a statement that
And
will, employment ends June 30th, 2020.
And these benefits.
and the benefits
And the benefits.
and the benefits of the health insurance stop when they get another job that offers health care, which may take some time. You get a job, it may take 2 months before your health care goes into effect, but we're not double dipping.
All right, those are two adjustments to the language that are included in the motion. Yes?
Just
Director
quickly,
Kowalski.
the A, I think we should have the attorney state what we wanted to state, so when we see it, it reads the way we want it to read. So, through the attorney, what is it going to say about the end date?
I can conform it to the comments that have been made. I think that's appropriate. I don't have it written out at the moment, but I can do that rather easily, I think.
Great. Good. Thank you. Good point. All right. Any other comments? I'll just say I'd feel so. I appreciate the discussion because it clarified some things for me about where things are in the budget and how we're doing this. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just a kind of a plan freak, and I like to know what we're doing. But it does sound like that there is a plan for how staff will be taking on the different jobs. Normally, as a board, we don't get into that level of detail because that's what we have the executive officer for. But I just feel as though there may be in this next year it may be helpful to have the executive committee or whoever usually looks at HR and personnel things to be able to help inform that plan so that the board can have some assurance that we're on
Yes,
plan.
Chair, I probably should add to maybe advance a bit more comfort for you and the board members that the RGS professionals, Sophia Selivanoff and Mira Park, have been very helpful in helping us to figure out the reorganization, the assignment of duties, how they fit in with our existing structure. That's going to be crucially important because we're losing our experienced human resources director in Robert Norris, but we have a way of figuring that out, and they're working right now with Jen Simon, and she's going to be taking a lot of that responsibility. So we are working through each and every one, and I appreciate the comment because it's not going to be an easy time.
Thank you. And we can just sort of stay tuned with this, but I think it may be helpful for the board to know what that plan is at some point, just so that we don't have to keep bothering you with questions and, we can.
You have it.
Great. Thank you. All right, there's a motion on the table. It's been seconded. There have been various helpful reminders about some of the discussion for adjustments to the language. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Chair, if I could, I didn't hear the motion say that the board would be adopting the resolution. I just want to make sure that that was included in the motion or a separate motion should be made.
Through the chair, my understanding was it was included.
With the modifications that have all been enumerated.
Yes.
Now, I heard the initial motion didn't say that. That's all. Just wanted to make sure I got it.
Yes, lots of nodding. Good. All right. We will move now to consider adoption of the FORA 2019-2020 annual budget. This is our second vote on this item. You want to set it up, Michael?
Yes, Chair. The members last month wanted to make sure that several members in their vote indicated a concern about not having this retention package reviewed and understood as to how it might implicate matters within the budget. This budget that's coming before you for the second vote, it follows that consideration as the board had requested. This does not yet include the final action that this board will take on the CIP, which will wind up being an amendment to the budget at a later date. This is an interim budget until the board takes action later on the CIP.
All right, thank you. So did you just say that, I thought we adopted a CIP as part of this, or we are adopting a CIP and then it will be amended later, or?
Yes, the transportation study will inform that, and the final CIP will not be reviewed until the transportation study is complete and presented back to the board.
Great, thank you. All right, I think, is there any board discussion on this? Is there any public comment on the budget? All right, so I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That passes unanimously. We'll move now to Delray Oaks and the retirement of a loan on their books.
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I would like to ask that I be recused from this. As much as I would love to be part of this discussion, I do have an interest in the outcome, and so if you would, I'd like to be recused.
Thank you. So
Okay.
you can step
Yeah.
outside and we'll fetch you when it's over. Thank you.
Yes, Chair, this is an item that was initiated by FORA staff asking what Delray Oaks' intent was to retire the debt that was outstanding. Our concern was that there was well over $500,000 due back to the Fort Ord Reuse Authority, and we had a limited amount of time before we would be expiring as an entity. And so the letter that was sent was asking, what are your proposals? The city of Delray Oaks and sent us a letter which proposed a payoff date that would have extended beyond FORA's end date. The Finance Committee reviewed that in some detail and then suggested that I contact Delray Oaks and indicate that we needed to have something that was much more in line with FORA's needs in the coming term rather than something that would be extended beyond FORA's existence. Delray Oaks reviewed that request. I sent a rather pointed letter asking them for a different proposal. They came back with the proposal to retire the entire principal of the debt in exchange for FORA considering waiving the interest on the debt. And they would retire all of that before FORA current scheduled sunset of June 30, 2020. There's a great benefit there for FORA. We have checked with Authority Council with regard to some questions that had surfaced at the Finance Committee meeting as to whether this might constitute a gift of public funds. Authority Council has reviewed this and indicated that it is not a gift of public funds.
That's correct. If it's found that it's a public purpose, then the gift, it certainly is potentially a gift of public funds, but if the board finds that there's a public purpose in reducing, eliminating the interest and getting the matter paid before FORA dissolves in 2020, that if the board finds there's a public purpose, there is not a gift of public funds.
Okay, yes, I think Director O'Connell was first and then Director Gunter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the sheet that was put in front of us this afternoon, on the second page, it says the start date of the loan was July 1st of 2013. Is that accurate, or is it 2014? Because right below that, we're talking about June 30th to 14.
It would be 14.
14. And looking at that same spot, but up above, it says the loan period in years is 6. So the loan was to be paid off within the 6-year period?
Yes, the initial, this was all tied to the potential for a land sale and to use revenues from Delray Oaks' share of land sale property on Fort Ord. As most jurisdictions do, they repay their debt from Fort Ord resources,
right, but
Fort Ord obligations. And this, portions of their land sale did occur. They did pay off portions of FORA's obligations to FORA, but didn't have sufficient to do that. They were anticipating another sale, which didn't occur.
But, initially it was to be paid off within 6 years, which would basically be June 30th of 2020.
Yes.
So in the staff report, it makes reference to this being acceleration, what is being proposed by Delray Oaks. I don't see it as being acceleration because it's going to be paid off on June 1 of 2020. I mean, at best, it seems to be the same terms, and they're asking us to waive approximately $56,000 plus of interest. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Well, as a non-land use member of this board, I've looked at this, and I've determined that if FORA goes away in 20 and Delray Oaks doesn't pay this bill, they're home free. It'd be like borrowing money from somebody that dies. FORA is going to die on the 20th of June, coming up on the 30th of June. I think if you're able to get the money from them and start eliminating some of the blight and taking care of the habitat, that's $500,000 that you're guaranteed to have while they have the money. I'm sure that their revenue is coming from probably marijuana, which has been one of their big industries. And I think this is an opportunity for FORA to collect the money, even though it may be without the $56,000 interest. It'd be better to have the $500,000 than maybe they'll only pay you $100,000, because there won't be anybody left to sue them when this organization goes away. So my idea would be we accept the payment plan, we move on, and FORA not loan any more money out to anybody.
Chair, I may respond. We're not talking about an individual, we're talking about a government, and I don't think Delray Oaks is going to go away, and I think it's important to Delray Oaks to honor its obligations, and I have no doubt that they would. I just don't see this as anything more than a waiver of public funds without justification, since there's no acceleration of this loan. Thank you.
So I have a question. It was unclear to me whether we were talking about reducing the interest rate on the loan from 5% to 2%, or whether we're talking about waiving the interest altogether. It wasn't clear to me. So what are we talking about here?
So to be clear, I think initially the city of Delray Oaks was requesting that the payments of $15,000 a month would be at a lower interest rate. That was their initial request. This request is to waive all of the interest in exchange for completely retiring the debt by June 30, 2020.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Director Morton.
So, while I concur with what Director O'Connell has just indicated, that the terms require payment by June 30th, I also understand that if they default, it's that we are trying to collect the money, and after June 30th, there's no entity to sue to collect the money. But the point that I would like to raise is you would not waive interest until you receive and cash the check for the full $552,000. So if you were going to do something, you would want to defer the collection of interest, and only upon payment in full by the June 1st would you agree that the interest would go away. So I just put that caution out there. Otherwise, they can default. We're suing them for $552,000, not $552,000 plus interest. Costs the same in attorney's fees.
The thing is Delray Oaks is making this proposal, so we either accept this proposal or reject it. I agree with Board Member Morton. It'd be a great way to do it, but if we do that, we're going back to them saying basically, we're not waiving the interest until you pay us in full. That's a substantial change, and I don't know if they'd go with that, so.
So can our authority council clarify, could this agreement include language indicating that the forgiveness of the interest, if you will, would be subject to full payment? In
Sure.
other words, so our rights would be reserved until.
Yeah, we can fashion agreement that, and if they default from the payment schedule, that the entire amount would be accelerated and entered as a judgment.
Okay.
So there's a variety of different ways we can do it. I haven't been really asked to put together any specific agreement with Del Rey Oaks yet, but we can always make that kind of language a part of it.
Yes, Director Oglesby.
That's essentially what they're agreeing to now. And so I think they would adopt that language. So it makes perfect sense when you said it. But also, what you said also is it was said twice. First of all, I want to acknowledge they're not making a payment schedule right now. I think the last payment was 2014. So it's in our interest, and I'm trying to establish the record, our public interest, to get this money fully paid. And so that's a benefit to the community. But when it said twice that if they don't pay and they're forfeit, there will be no entity to sue them. So we're back to FORA is going away then. See, that I'm just throwing that out there for everybody, right? See, I know you thought I wasn't making sense before, but I know what I'm talking about. And so hopefully if they do default, it'll be a group of 5 that would look to make them recoup. That's right.
Any other questions by board members? Any member of the public wishing to ask a question or make a comment on this item? All right, we'll bring it back to the board. What's your will here?
So I will make the motion premised upon the facts that we've heard and no payments are being made, that we would accept a monthly payment schedule for the payment in full of $552,961 in principal owed to the FORA as an entity, that the payments will be made timely pursuant to the schedule and amounts that are attached as this amortization schedule, and the payment needs to be paid and the obligation paid in full by June 1st, 2020. Provided all of those terms and the payments are all timely made, that there would be a forgiveness of the additional sum of interest, which is, as of today, approximately $56,000. If payments are not timely received and payment is not paid in full by June 1st, 2020, the obligation bears interest at 5% on the unpaid balance, and all of it is due in its entirety forthwith.
I'll second that.
For the sake of conversation, can I ask the maker of the motion if she'll consider an amendment on the number? We just forgot the 58 cents at the end. I don't want it to be a gift of public funds. So we can call it the Lopez Amendment for 58 cents. And
You are so good, because I'm reading from the staff report that didn't have the 68 cents. Yes, it's 58 cents is added to my motion without.
All right, thank you. There's a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. One no. Would someone find Director Gagliotti, and then we can move to, we have one more substantive item, business item 8D, administrative consistency determination for entitlement of the Seaside Senior Living Project. We are past 5 o'clock, so if I could have a motion to complete that item and hear from the public. 8D.
So moved.
Consistency determination. Thank you. There's a motion and a second to continue through the completion of those items. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And you'll notice I did leave off the Special District Risk Management Authority Board of Directors election. We don't have to have those results in, if we even want to do it, until August, so we can do it next month if time allows. Right. Good. All right. So administrative consistency determination.
This is going to be Jonathan Brinkman's last administrative consistency determination for entitlement. We have not received to date, we have not received any comments, letters, or requests for a hearing on this administrative consistency determination. So Jonathan, what does that mean?
So it means we are still in the time period where an appeal can occur. So if there is an appeal between now and the next board meeting, it may reappear at the board agenda for board action. But for tonight, it is an information item unless appealed by a board member. And this is administrative development entitlement consistency determination. So just to remind the board, this is a consistency determination that does not require board action unless appealed. The other type is the legislative land use decision, which is a general plan or a zoning change. There's been no general plan change for Seaside in respect to this project. It's a use permit that the city's granted the developer to build a 144-bed residential care facility. So this is an assisted living facility with different levels of care, and it's on a 5-acre parcel near Seaside Highlands and Highway 1. The City of Seaside submitted their full application. We provide the link in the board report. Staff's available if there are any questions. This is an information item currently.
Yeah, so Chair, if no board member requests a hearing and no others request a hearing in this time period, this is the last you will see of this. It'll be deemed consistent.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone, any board member have a question on this item? All right, any member of the public wishing to comment? Excellent. Please come forward.
residential district, and then cross General Jim Moore Boulevard into the City of Monterey Annex, end quote. So a 10-foot hiker-biker trail is planned but does not currently exist along Monterey Road in the vicinity of the project area. What does exist is a 4-foot sidewalk and 2 bike lanes on a roadway that is very congested during peak periods. It's also perhaps worth noting that a regional PG&E gas main runs through the rear of the project area, and the alignment of this gas line is in many ways compatible with regional trail alignments, including perhaps a segment of the planned Monterey Road Trail. As currently planned, the project includes a parking lot on top of the gas line, which would block the potential co-use of the gas line easement for a trail. Overall, it would seem that any consistency determination for projects proposed along Monterey Road should address how the Monterey Road Trail, as envisioned in the reuse plan, is to come about, and whether the project itself should carry some of the responsibility for implementing a segment of this trail. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? All right, I'll bring it back to the board. Yes, any comments, Director Morton?
So as a member of the public and has standing to appeal, is that determined to be an appeal?
So there are 2 different types of appeals from the public. One is they pay the filing fee that Monterey County charges for an appeal, and the appeal goes through. The other, if they meet certain financial requirements, income levels, that they do not have to pay that fee. But a fee has to be paid, or proof of meeting the income requirements has to be met before the appeal is a finalized appeal.
So what is that fee? Is it $10 or $5,000? What is it? It's in the thousands.
Yes.
So if a board member requests a hearing, that would be, that the public would have the opportunity to come forward and be heard on these issues?
Yes, a public hearing will occur if a board member appeals or if a member of public appeals it.
And a board member pays the fee as well?
No.
Okay. So how do you make an appeal?
You send a letter to the executive officer.
By what's the deadline?
I think it's the end of this month. It's a 45-day window from the date that we get the package. So, is that correct, Jonathan?
Yes, so the board received this a week ago, so it's 35 days from last Friday.
30
is the appeal period.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? Yes, Mr.
And
Oglesby.
I'm sure staff will send out a copy of anybody that makes an appeal. Well, I'll just speak to anybody that's concerned with the consistency. What are we talking about? That was an old shopette site that was finally taken down by FORA, so Seaside can build an assisted living facility up there. And now we're talking about blocking that because we have a trail. So the trail is taking precedent over what the communities are trying to do. And so I understand because I've been on FORA a long time, so I get it, I understand that. But I want to show all the rest of you guys what is going on. How can we have economic development if we're saying the regional trailway is stopping development, stopping housing, stopping anything we're trying to do concerning economic development? And that trail, I don't know who it belongs to, but it doesn't belong to Seaside. So if FORA is not going to prioritize that trail, then why are we holding up this site? And that's the decision we're going to have to make when this thing comes back. So it's not a Seaside trail, it's the trail that it originally went through, but somehow it only cuts through development that Seaside is trying to do. And then it becomes inconsistent. So we're going to have that same concern over at Seaside East. We support trails in Seaside, we support FORTAG, but when it comes up against, it's more important for people to walk that trail than the citizens of Seaside to have economic development, then I have concerns. And I have concerns with what this board is doing and the potential for what the board may be asked to do in the future. So those are my comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Director Adams and then Director Pacheco.
Thank you. If I'm understanding this correctly, I so hear what you're saying, and I feel like this board flips back and forth on whether or not, and I'll read the sentence, the reuse plan is a framework for development, not a precise plan to be mirrored. That's what's written in this report. So I feel like with this circumstance, we don't want the Fort Ord Reuse Authority, the reuse plan, to be specific. However, there is another issue when we talk about roads that have been proposed, where this board says the reuse plan says that the roads have to be built. So I feel like we are guilty of being inconsistent, and at some point we're going to have to come to terms with that.
You know, I'm new to all this, and I come to visit and occasionally, and the frustration is throughout this entire day is frustrating. This is not a new project. This is not a secret. This has been going on for 12 years, in and out of this area, and from a resident who's said forever, we're trying to do one little thing. Now we're going to extend it for 3 more, 5 more, 10 years on a trail. And I appreciate any resident, any citizen that has the right to appeal whatever they choose to appeal. And God bless them for doing that. And I'm a supporter of trails as much as anybody. Not that I'm a mountain climber or walker, but if I was, I'd be much more. But the bottom line is, let us do something. This project, we've had a groundbreaking 6 months ago, and we still haven't done anything because of all the issues associated with anything you try to do in this area. And it's just maximizes my frustration, be it on this board or anything anybody tries to do for anybody. I'll pick on somebody, Mrs. Helen Rucker, 4 years ago, that most of you know Mrs. Rucker, was trying to find a place to live, potentially in Seaside, because she didn't want to live in Monterey PG. Well, the process in which this is moving, she'll be dead 20 years, as well as I be, before we can do anything. Just give us an opportunity. Work with us. Work with the developer. There's ways of doing things without stopping everything we strive to do. And it's maybe because of all the things that we're trying to do that get slowed down. It's frustrating, and just give us the opportunity. Just one little bit of opportunity. That's all I'm saying. And I apologize for my frustration, but this week has been a way of people stopping Seaside for the last 2 weeks at anything we strive to do. And this is another step of people stopping Seaside, and it's extremely irritating. Thank you for your time, and I do apologize.
Thank you. Director Reimers and then Director Morton.
I'm very sympathetic to what you just said. When I read the report, I thought, what a fabulous project to senior living. We have several friends who are in that category. Not, of course, but the others are. And it's just very, very important in our communities to have these facilities. And I would hope, in a perfect world, that the people who are concerned about the path, and we're working with paths in Carmel trying to be sure that the cyclists can get through in a safe way. And it's terribly important that they have the open space and have the space to do this. My sons are cyclists. And I would hope people could sit down at a table and say, look, we need to have access on a bike path, and we need to have the senior living. Let's take it out of the courthouses. We really need to sit down and have a pleasant have a conversation about it and make it happen, and let the communities develop these really fine projects, and let's support one another in helping it, because we are a community. And I would just hope that you'd be able to move forward, and I can hear your frustration, and I value that.
Thank you. Director Morton.
So I think the last two speakers summed it up, is that the objection may very well be able to be resolved with the developer. And I don't know how big this land site is, but a 10-foot trail may fit still with the development going forward. But the whole point about the appeal process is somebody has a right to file an appeal. No action is being taken today on this, because the appellate time, the time for the public to file an appeal, has not happened. But I would urge the speaker to be talking to the city of Seaside and to the developer, perhaps, is to how do you fit a 10-foot wide trail on the premises and in your design. Doesn't seem that difficult to me. I don't know what the project looks like, but I do respect that it's a needed project and we want you to have it.
Chair, just take 30 seconds. I don't know if apparently, well, I'm not going to say you. I just, other people that are not familiar with the former Fort Ord, the site was an old Shopette site, a 7-Eleven site. So it was already paved over, trees were already cut down because it was cemented and it was a building. We finally take the building down after 24 years. I think they just did it 4 months ago. And so to have a developer come and say, we want to put up assisted living there, well, it shouldn't go there because you guys said a trail was supposed to go there 22 years ago. Where's the trail at? That's not our responsibility. And so I'm just painting a picture for the other people on the board that this is a disturbed site. It already had a building that was knocked down. And the last point is, the speaker has a right to say whatever they want. Whoever wants to protest has a right to put in the letter to protest, and then it'll come back to this board. But it's not. I'm just saying, it's just a way to stop progress. The path is not there now. So to develop it, we must put a pathway there, and maybe we could work it out. I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying, where was this conversation at before? Where is the pathway that leads on each side of the building? Thank you so much.
All right, Director Carbone?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that we do have a beautiful bike trail on the coast that, you know, it's been there. It's a commuter bike trail, and it goes through our city, and we've got the missing link there at, let's see, Orchard. I guess it comes out at Orchard, and we're working with a developer who is, his project is at the Coastal Commission, and he is, part of his development was we had him, I'll say forced, or asked him to put in the connection over to Sand Dunes Drive. So, you know, I'm just saying we got some great trails already, and that, you know, perhaps maybe you could work with a developer. It won't get settled tonight. So that's my
Thank you.
comment. Thanks.
Yeah, good, thank you. All right, this will be back next month, so we can continue the
Yes,
discussion.
Chair,
right?
just to be clear, unless
there's
we
an appeal.
receive an appeal, this will be deemed complete.
Thank you. All right. So we may not see it next month. All right, so the only remaining item on our agenda is the public comment period. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment on any items not on today's agenda? Seeing no rush for the microphone, I'll close public comment, and we are adjourned. See you July 12th.